Supervisor?
Yeah.
Just one thing, everybody on the line, just for a second. I just wanted to, just out of respect for the Scouts, just wanted to thank them for being here and participating. But Steve, could you stand up, Mr. Steve Rick, and the leadership from the Scouts? I just want to give them credit. I mean, these guys, you know, my children are involved in scouting, and there's a lot of work that goes into, you know, by the leadership of these organizations. And I just want to just recognize Mr. Steve Rick and the other people that help him out. I know there's a lot of parents that help out with the organization. A lot of great things that are going on with scouting, and I just want to give them credit for maybe it's a satisfying, gratifying job, but maybe not always, you know, get thanked.
Okay, moving on to old business. We have the Saunders Settlement Road drainage issue.
That issue is taken care of, we're all set.
Okay. You believe it? Okay.
There's no action the town board
Still
needs to take on that.
right. Okay.
Do we take it off old business?
Yes. Okay. And then the amendment 360-50, 360-108, 360-114 for Lewiston number 1. Yes, I believe so. Local law, yeah. So there'll be no action taken on that. That'll be tabled. Correct, Ryan? That's the Lewiston 1 training facility?
That's correct.
Okay. There'll be no action on that. And then the rezoning with Niagara University for local law.
We can't take action on that one yet. We're still waiting for our time period to run on the lead agency letter to be sent out to the parties.
Okay. And then the Cold War veterans exemption.
That I explained, I believe, at the last meeting.
Microphone, I want to hear about that.
That we discussed briefly at the last meeting or the meeting before that. Lewiston never had a town tax before, so there was never a need for this exemption. What this exemption does is basically provides a discount to Cold War veterans or people who are considered Cold War veterans. It's basically anybody from a certain date who served from 1945 to a certain date in 1991 in one of the branches of our military. It gives them a discount towards their town tax. Because we didn't have a town tax, we never had it in place before. Linda Johnson sent a letter to the board just wanting to make you aware that now that we have a town tax, this is something that the board could consider in the future. It would involve passing a local law and certain steps to get it in place. If the board directs me to, I will certainly take those steps.
Yeah, I would move forward with that.
So we'll direct you to do it, and then we.
And then you can consider the law later on down the road.
So it's just on property tax. It's not on school tax or county tax or.
I believe it's just for our town, and it's the town board. Basically, you have an amount you can decide from, and you have a percentage you can decide from. But once I put the law into place, I'll kind of explain that. Yeah, exactly. And what you want, what level you want to set it up at, there's thresholds, but that is up to the board, and I'll make sure you're aware of what those different thresholds are.
Do we need to schedule a public hearing for that?
We don't have the law yet.
Okay.
The law has not been introduced yet.
Okay.
But this is something that I'll just start working on, knowing that the board, it's something that you're interested in.
Yes. Okay. And then Bob Lane and the bid on the fire hydrant with NIPA.
Yes, we've solicited 5 bids. We received 5 bids back. The low bid was about $32,000. I have taken that information, forwarded to NIPA for their approval. Have not heard back yet. So at this point, there's no action in front of the board to be taken, and we'll wait to hear and see if they respond for the next meeting in November.
This is the fire hydrant up by their new building?
No, it's by the security off of military there, by this new security gate.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before we move to new business, I know we just had an election this past Tuesday night. I wanted to first congratulate Al Bax and John Jacoby, who's in the front row here. I would also like to congratulate Vic Ike and Fran Flanagan. I think it was a good election, and I thought it was positive, and hopefully things will stay that way. I was grateful for that. So congratulations to them as well. Under new business, the attorney, the Paid Medical Leave Act. Ryan, you want to discuss that?
So as most people are aware, New York State passed a paid medical leave law. It does not cover municipalities per se. Municipalities either opt into that law or they opt out, but they have to make a decision, they have to pass a resolution, and they have to inform the town employees and the workers' comp board prior to December 1st whether or not they will be offering those benefits. So it's something for the board to consider between now and our town board meeting. You know, it's up to the board whether you want to opt into providing those additional benefits as New York passed the law. In general, the benefits in the town of Lewiston for the employees are negotiated as part of collective bargaining agreements. So if you do approve it, that would be something above and beyond all the other benefits that are provided under those CBAs.
Now, in speaking with you, it was your opinion that it probably should be left to negotiations as well, correct?
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. So,
Well, it certainly isn't much of a window of an opportunity to study the topic.
It is not. As a matter of fact, we just became aware of this. I don't think that most municipalities out there realize that they have to either opt in or opt out. I believe that most municipalities are just not acting, and by default they wouldn't be providing that.
They're not. So when you opt,
because you have to opt in. I'd imagine that most municipalities don't realize that they have to do this because it is so new. They just happen to get onto our radar.
If we choose not to do it at this time, can we opt in at a later time with negotiation?
It's one of those things where you could certainly provide those benefits as part of negotiating a collective bargaining agreement, or you could decide later on that, you know what, we do want to provide this to everybody, and you can change your mind later on.
okay.
So no action.
Okay.
I will email. I can email the board a copy. I can put a resolution together, or a resolution either way, and send it to the board so you can see that and review it prior to this month's board meeting.
Okay. 2018 budget.
I just briefly would just say we need to do two things on the budget. One would be we need a resolution passing the final budget as presented. That would be a roll call vote.
Okay.
And then the second thing that we need to do is pass a resolution approving the assessment rolls for the special assessment districts. If you'll remember, we did have that was part of the public hearings that we did at our last meeting.
Okay.
so moved
I would do first would be the motion.
for the accepting the budget as presented.
Okay.
Second.
And a second.
Roll call.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilman Bax?
Aye.
Councilman Zardo?
Aye.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Councilman L'Oreal?
Aye.
Councilman Guyman?
Yes.
Supervisor Breyer?
Yes.
The next resolution would be to approve the assessment rolls for the special assessment districts as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Does that require a roll call? No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. The Niagara Wheatfield Athletic Association one-lot subdivision. Councilman Morial.
The planning board meeting in regular session on October 19th, 2017, classified as a minor to be treated as a minor subdivision. A request from Niagara Wheatfield Athletic Association for a one-lot subdivision on the south side of Saunders Settlement Road, SPL number 118.00-1-64. The planning board recommends approval of the subdivision. A negative deck is recommended. I'd like to make a motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, one second.
All in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, sorry, discussion.
A little quicker.
That's a large chunk of property with only one egress in and out. And just caution the board, down the way, that may cause us some stress. I won't vote against the resolution, but it's just something to make you aware of.
And Tim, any opinion on that one way or the other?
It could come back to bite them in the future, but they're in full knowledge of this is their request, and the old plan has been rescinded, and they're going to redevelop their soccer field plan, so it could bite them.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. The site plan application, the east corner of Riverwalk Drive at Wolf Run, from what I understand, that has to be tabled tonight? Correct?
That's my understanding as well. Yes.
Okay. There's an issue with engineering and legal.
What would those be?
Use the microphone. Use the microphone.
I believe that the recommendation of the planning board, or the approval of the planning board was contingent on attorney and engineering approval. I believe engineers still need to look into their part of it, run some numbers, my understanding.
No, the only aspect of engineering related to that particular application is the drainage. The drainage was designed for what we call lot 16 in French Landing. That lot and the abutting lot is going to be combined to make two buildable lots. So we just need to incorporate the drainage and revise the drainage in that particular area. It's a very minor issue. I don't expect any problems whatsoever. We just need to work on that to incorporate the drainage as it will need to be modified to accommodate that lot. Not an issue at all.
Okay. Is it still your opinion that there'll be no action taken tonight on it?
Yeah. Mr. Supervisor,
Yeah.
if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is William Tyne. I'm from Forbes Capreto Homes. We're the ones who made the petition initially, which was approved unanimously by the planning board. This is what we're talking about. Unfortunately, it's a little small down here, but basically.
We've got it in front of us.
Okay, so you know what it looks. Okay, perfect. So what there was a long Riverwalk. The strip was just a piece that was labeled green space in the Riverwalk subdivision. And as just a piece of property, it was non-conforming as a building lot, so nothing could be built on it. So Joe Deck had it. He was being asked to put sidewalks across the piece that he was never going to be able to build on. We owned and bought from Mr. Wolfgang sublot 16, whose lot line went straight across. So it was a really big lot. All we're asking to do, quite simply, is to take the lot line and rotate it over and redistribute the property so that lot 16, which is still was way larger than necessary, it is a conforming building lot. And it now, by just adjusting this lot line, it makes this lot now conforming, and a home can be built on it. You get assessed valuation to help offset the cost of operating and maintaining infrastructure out here. We get an extra building lot. That's all. There's no new lots being created. It just makes it now a conforming building lot that a house can be built on. We don't have to do anything physically to alter the drainage. The drainage is already installed on both streets. We're not doing anything other than building a house. The surface drainage will still run to this street from the side and to this street in the front. The only request that came before the planning board was to put, would we oppose a drainage district being placed over this lot. That's it, a mechanism for you to assess and collect tax revenue to help pay for the infrastructure you already have out here. No physical improvements, no adjustment to that, just allow it to be part of the drainage district. That's it. I talked to Mr. Lannon earlier today. He didn't seem to think there was any problem with it. So
go ahead.
I don't know what's necessary.
No, I agree. I spoke to Mr. Tyne, and if you recall, the board, when it approved French Landing subdivision and the creation of the stormwater district associated there too, there were 27 lots in that stormwater district. Okay, This would add essentially a 28th lot to that existing stormwater district. So procedurally, I'm not sure how we need to do it, but we just need to increase the size of that stormwater district by 1 lot.
The district, not the runoff.
Yeah, just the district. Just the district.
Hold on one second.
There's a lot of issues going on with this right now. First of all, what they want to do is take green space.
That's what I was going to ask.
Part of a green space as an approved cluster development and make that, and make that part of a building lot.
Can you use the mic, please?
I am. I'm sorry if it's not working.
The other one isn't either.
I will take the other.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
So the first issue is you're taking green space that was what is approved green space as part of a prior cluster development. The second issue, what you're doing is you are basically amending the property lines of a already approved and filed map. And you're actually doing that to 2 separate subdivisions because you're changing the green space on Riverwalk and you're changing the lot 16 on Wolf Run. The other issue is that if you want to extend your drainage district, we would need an amended map plan and report, and that's something that needs to be submitted by NGen engineer, and it's a decent amount of work for the town to go through to add that additional property to the drainage district. Not that it's something we can't do, we certainly can, but at this point, the proposal or the site plan was approved by the planning board, subject to attorney approval, and at this point I can't provide attorney approval.
Okay. So at this time we would table it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any idea how long it's going to take? Because we've been at this for quite some time. I've made several calls to the attorney asking for where we're going with this, and apparently nothing has happened on it. So, well, I don't know where we're going with this. I'm just apparently burning up time for no real reason.
The first I saw this is when I received my packet on Thursday.
We were before the planning board last month, where it was unanimously approved. All of these issues, the only 2 that were mentioned before the planning board were, 1, attorney approval, which was pretty much the context of the conversation was my request to not amend map covers, to just convey this property by adjusting a property line by meets and bounds survey, because we're not creating additional property. We're just adjusting a lot line, which is, by the way, something that we've done on several occasions in Waterford Heights along Sullivan Court, where we did exactly the same thing. We conveyed lots not by the map cover.
Do you foresee an answer within 2 weeks for the regular town board meeting on the 27th?
That was my plan.
Right. So 2 weeks, basically. I mean, there's plenty of. It's not a lot you were going to break ground on tomorrow, correct?
It is not. It's
okay.
Just, I drove an hour out here. I'm
right.
driving an hour back. It's
right.
There was no indication. I made phone calls to try to find out whether I should come out here tonight, and there was no indication that I'd be tabled tonight and shouldn't bother coming. So, with that,
who did you speak with?
I spoke today with
right.
Mr. Lanning, and I spoke with Mr. Parisi several weeks ago.
We spoke a couple weeks ago. He did call and leave a message today. I tried calling him back. I was told he was in a meeting and that he would try to get back to me by the end of the day, and I never received.
Okay. I never got out of the meeting until the time to 5:15. And
I understand.
Blast out here.
Right.
So,
well, hopefully we would save the trip the next time.
I hope so. So let me talk about the green space while we're here, since it's been raised. It was not an issue that was on the table prior. So the green space, my understanding was that piece was labeled as green space. Now, I was not involved in the approval, so all I can tell you is what was presented to me was that it was green space basically because it was a non-conforming lot. It was not adopted as park space. There's no issue with trying to acquire park space and convert it to some other use. It was just simply labeled green space because it couldn't conform as a buildable lot. That was the only reason. So this wasn't the sort of thing that this was dedicated green space to be utilized by the public. In fact, quite the opposite. It's become a nightmare from a maintenance standpoint. Nobody's cutting grass, it's unsightly, it's not being maintained. It was our goal to fix all that by building a house on it. Again, we're not changing the drainage. All we're doing in terms of, we didn't disagree, by the way, with amending and adding this property, this one little sliver of property, and putting it in the drainage district, because I understand there is no drainage district for Riverwalk, but there is one for French Landing, and we did not object. If you wanted to put this little piece into French Landing, we said that's fine. But if that's a problem, we're happy not to do that and leave it just as it is. That's equally acceptable to me. I really don't want to blow this up and make it a big deal. I just simply want to get it approved.
Right. I understand. So we'll have an answer for you, within 2 weeks and vote on it at the next town board meeting.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Okay, site plan application, LMK Realty at Legacy Drive Pool House Pool. Councilman Morial.
The planning board meeting in regular session on October 19th, 2017 reviewed a site plan review application for LMK Realty Associates, LLC, to add a pool house and pool at the northeast end of Legacy Drive. The planning board recommends approval of the site plan as submitted. The negative deck is also recommended. I'd like to make a motion on it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have to do that in 2 motions?
Yeah.
Two motions, Tim, do we need 2 motions on the?
You normally do it.
To approve it and then accept the negative deck.
Other way around.
Negative deck and then the approval.
Okay. So, reword your first motion to
Accept the
negative deck.
Okay, so the planning board on a regular session, is it the planning board on a negative deck? A negative declaration is recommended,
I think that's it.
and let's make a motion to accept it.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now the motion on
The planning board meeting in regular session on October 19th, 2017, reviewed a site plan review application for LMK Realty Associates, LLC, to add a house and pool at the northeast end of Legacy Drive. The planning board recommends approval of the site plan as submitted.
That's it.
Yep.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. And now we have a rezone request. Councilman Guyman.
We have the principal here who would like to speak to us in regards to duplexes in regard LMK Realty on North Beach Drive.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I'm Dominic Massaro. I reside at 4697 Jason Court. I'm a principal of LMK Realty. I'm here tonight with Lisa Keating, who is also a principal with me in our development company. We've been appeared before the town planning board since August of this year concerning our 15-unit townhome or 30-unit townhome development, 15 buildings, and we believe that we have presented to them a very well-conceived and well-designed project that merits the approval of the town board. As Mr. Conrad mentioned earlier today, the planning board is a recommendation, gives a recommendation. It's up to the town board to make the final determination. In consultation after our review with the planning board, I solicited the meeting minutes. We also took notes during the various meetings with all the comments that were given, and there were a number of topics that were brought up regarding the project. I'd like to address each of those this evening, and I'll try to be as brief as possible based upon the recommendations that you probably have received from the planning board. Essentially, the project as submitted, according to the planning board, the approval of the rezoning from R1 to R2 would result in an illegal spot zoning within an R1 and PUD district for the sole benefit of the applicant, our firm, with no benefit to the general welfare of the community. I would suggest to the town board that this does not constitute illegal spot zoning in any manner, shape, or form. The Niagara County Planning Board reviewed this in detail prior to us making this submission to the Town of Lewiston Planning Board. They reviewed our proposal and unanimously recommended approval to the Town Planning Board for our development as submitted. They felt that the characteristics of the buildings, the transition from the heavily developed PUD to the townhome development and how it interfaces with the R1 development that's adjacent was a perfect situation based upon how we presented it. So the town already has this. This was approved unanimously by the Niagara County Planning Board. Also regarding a spot zoning situation, I would suggest to the town board that a spot zoning is, in my understanding, it's the process of singling out a very small parcel of land for use or a classification that's totally different from the surrounding area for the benefit of the owner of the property to the detriment of the other owners. We're not doing that here. We're in a residential area. We're asking for a residential zoning change. If we were here today asking you to put a commercial or an industrial application in that area, I would suggest to you that that would constitute spot zoning. We're in a residential area. You already have an existing PUD in that area surrounding the R1 development along Scoville Drive, and this is a perfect transition, for this. All right, now with regard to that, and then essentially the next point that was brought up was the rezoning of these properties to R2 would not be in agreement with the town comprehensive plan, and the nearest R2 properties are miles away from the project. Well, with regard to that, I would refer you to the town zoning map. The Blairville property located up on Creek Road is the woods at Blairville is a PUD, and adjacent to it is an R2 development which directly fronts an R1 residential district. In other words, the two-story townhomes front the fronts of the residential properties. Ours is different. Ours is, in my opinion, better because our properties would abut the Scoville Drive properties only on backyard to backyard, and we've incorporated a sufficient buffer of trees to block off that particular area. So that would basically lend for a perfect transition from the heavy concentration, apartments, PUD, and into this development into residential. Totally different. So it already exists within the town. We're just asking for the same treatment that's already been given prior to that. Now, with regard to the town's, comprehensive plan, it also stated that, our concept would result in a conflict with that. But the 2011 Lewiston Comprehensive Plan updates vision statement specifically encourages a greater variety of densities and housing types in the corridor along the Niagara River and the surrounding village. And our parcels that we're asking for rezoning immediately are east of the village, so it falls within that criteria. The Town of Lewiston Comprehensive Plan also seeks to encourage residential development that is compatible with adjacent usage. Where adjacent uses are non-residential, there will be adequate buffers between usage. Now, we don't have a non-residential usage. We have a residential to a residential, R1 to R2, and we are buffering the area. And residential development should also occur in areas with adequate services such as transportation, water, and sewer. Everything necessary for this property already exists along Northridge Drive. The water, the sewer, everything is already there. It's already been incorporated into Northridge Drive, which was dedicated to the town back in the 1990s. So everything is there, and it fits that plan perfectly. Our proposed development is also consistent with surrounding usage, which includes a higher density PUD development across the street and higher density development in the village of Lewiston. Now, the village of Lewiston also has very multifamily zoning districts. If you take a look at the village zoning map, here, what this shows is that all of the areas that are tan, which basically the commercial areas go along Center Street, which are in red, the tan areas and the other highlighted areas, fall into R2 and our multifamily. There's 5 different classifications of multifamily homes. So the village of Lewiston has this throughout, okay, from that standpoint. Also, what was suggested in our review by the town planning board was that an approval of this R2 zoning in this primarily R1 district would create an unfair advantage for our development company over other developers building compliant projects within the town's R1 districts. Well, we sat through 3 different meetings, and there was significant comments that were given concerning traffic, and primarily the traffic was the main concern. There wasn't one developer that got up and spoke and said that they were against this project. And I would suggest to you that I don't believe it's the purview of the town planning board or the town board to basically, favor one developer over another or make those types of competitive business decisions. Okay, so that was never brought up. The only thing that was brought up during those sessions was traffic. And essentially, we agreed that traffic along Northridge Drive, there should be stop sign that should be put there by the town adjacent to the intersection of Legacy and Northridge. One of the tenants, or one of the owners of the condominium across the street provided the planning board with a letter, Diane Roberts, and that was put on forth with the record with the planning board. And her suggestion was that people regularly walk pets up and down the street, and that she wanted to make sure that the significant traffic and sidewalks were incorporated into the project, and that her points would be given consideration. She did not speak against the project. She just wanted to make sure that her points were heard regarding the traffic. We did agree to the planning board that we would incorporate sidewalks. We have sidewalks on our adjacent Legacy Drive property. It would be a perfect tie into that, and when that eventually should go up Northridge Drive up to 104 to connect into the village. So that would also would cause our development to be reviewed favorably. Regarding the traffic studies, the traffic concerns were of the 30 more driveways versus 21 that would be added, an additional 9 driveways. According to the traffic study, there really is, according to my examination of this situation and consulting with our professional people, they advise that according to the Institute for Traffic Engineers, the traffic impact analysis for site development, which the DEC recommends for use by local boards in evaluating potential traffic impacts, substantial increases in traffic are only expected to occur above certain thresholds of development that are far greater than what we've proposed to the planning board and this board. Specifically, they cite 95 units in terms of a single-family development, 150 units for apartments, condominiums, townhomes, like we're providing here, 190 units. We're only proposing 30. So the effective traffic would be negligible from that standpoint. And then the last issue that was brought up by the planning board, that there are no circumstances that are necessarily unique or hardships tied to this property that would prevent it from being developed as R1. Well, to that I would say that there's no obligation on our part as a developer to demonstrate a hardship or a unique circumstance to obtain a rezoning. We are not asking for a variance request, okay? It's the request to rezone multiple parcels so as to provide appropriately scaled development in an area of the town that already has multiple levels of density, and so that the comprehensive plan that the town of Lewiston has espoused and put on the record specifically envisions for such a mix of these types of residential densities. With that, I can answer any questions that anyone would have. I would suggest that, it would be my suggestion to the town board that irrespective of the recommendation of the planning board, which was a split decision, by the way, I would suggest that, I would respectfully suggest that consideration be given to approving our plan as submitted. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Have any questions for Mr. Massaro?
What kind of buffer zone are you anticipating between Scoville and the backyards?
Trees. There's existing, what's out there now is, there's old trees, scrub, that kind of stuff. There probably is not sufficient tree-line development behind the backyards of Scoville to sufficiently buffer that. On our conceptual site plan that we submitted to the planning board for approval, we showed a tree line in there that we would plant trees to further buffer that. Again, you're causing your backyard to backyard, okay, which is far more beneficial and better than what you already have in Lewiston right now, you know, up on the Blairville property where you're facing, the R1 units are facing the R2 units. So that's the buffer zone.
How many feet would that be, Tom? Would that be 20?
The lots are 165 feet deep. Okay, so they're deep enough that there should be enough for us to leave there on eventual construction, to leave you know, a sufficient stand of trees and whatever's there up, and then we can supplant it too, like we've done before. We've left sufficient buffers on our other projects that we've done already too on Legacy.
Any other questions? Do you have plans, Tim, do we have plans on the actual buildings in the office?
Yeah, he has given us architectural renderings. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're just in the conceptual plan. You know, pending approval, we'll proceed with full architectural drawings.
We
you know,
didn't
for
get
approval.
this until Friday.
Excuse me?
We did not get this until Friday. So it's a lot to digest. Your presentation was excellent, but it's a lot to take in right now.
One other thing I might mention too, I don't mean to interrupt you, Bill, is that there is a demand for this, okay? We are currently, our existing development over at Legacy Drive with our condominiums are sold out, okay? We only have one left, okay, in our present building. And the comments that we've been getting is that people do not want to walk upstairs, they want to age in place, they want to own their own facility. They're not that enamored with the up and down type of a situation as with a condominium, and they would like to have their own, you know, separate patio home. Okay, they like to have their home, and so it's a perfect situation. We've gone through the studies with Great Lakes Realty, who served as our major marketing arm for all of our developments to date. They feel that they could sell these out, you know, immediately, and there's a good demand for it. The town benefits from a standpoint as to right now you're receiving taxes on 21 vacant lots. And basically, at the full development, you receive taxes on 30 developed home properties. So there is a benefit to the town.
So these are going to be zero lot line owned properties.
No, they're not zero lot line. No, there's sufficient setbacks and everything as designed. They're not clusters.
Well, they're duplexes.
Yes, they're two homes together. There's a group of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom, you know, homes. Yeah, 15 buildings, 30 units.
On one piece of property.
Correct. Yep.
It's very close to a zero lot line concept, but. Okay.
I would have to table this before, because this is a rezone, so we would need a public hearing, a local law that goes along with that.
Right. I just want to see if anybody else had any more questions for Mr.
Tim, are there other alternatives than rezoning? Can it be amended into the PUD?
He could amend it to his PUD if he had the amount of open space required under the PUD law. I'm not sure you have the 25%.
There's 6.9 acres there right now. So I don't think there's enough to do that. That's the reason why the suggestion was made to do it to an R2, you know, versus just, you know, expanding our existing PUD in that particular area.
Okay.
How many homes would be in there if it wasn't, if just R1?
Single, 21. The problem is with that concept, because that was brought out during the planning board meeting, is that if you were basically buying a home, a single-family home, would you want to be facing a multifamily development? Because that's what you're going to be faced with there. Because those homes will face the apartments at Ridgeview and the condominiums, the coach houses at Ridgeview. I suggest to you that that would be a difficult marketing situation in order to do that. That's the reason why we looked at changing it to an R2 development, okay? 1 floor plans for people to buy, you know, set up a condominium association to basically keep it uniform and market it in that particular manner.
Duplex or single home, you're still gonna be looking at it. Your views are gonna be the same. If you're in a single home or a duplex, you're still gonna be looking at Legacy, the apartments and the condos.
The duplex situation, or the duplex situation is a better marketing situation facing the multifamily because it's more dense, to a lesser dense in an R2 that backs up against an R1. That's the whole object. Instead of going for the total density there at the PUD and then trying to supplant an R1 right next to it. That was the argument about trying to make it a gradual transition of the PUD R2 to the R1. I suggest to you also that you already have that existing up the street. You already have done it. I'm just asking to do the same thing that's already been allowed. I think it makes eminent sense.
Is this property going to be removed from the whole PUD?
It's not in it now.
It's
not in it now.
It's separate. It's always remained separate.
Right.
Any other question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so no action will be taken on that tonight. Now, the Bree Estate Subdivision, Town of Niagara, seeker coordination. Bob Lannon?
Yeah, I believe the request in front of the town board is just to concur whether the town of Lewiston agrees with the town of Niagara's intent to declare sub-lead agency in connection with the Bree Estate subdivision. That's really the only action in front of the town board at the moment.
Is this a development we're concerned about drainage?
Yes.
Does it do us any good to request partial lead agency or share lead agency?
I'm not familiar with that. If that's possible under seeker, I've never heard it before. In this case, the town's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Master, but my understanding is the town's interest here is the issuance of a floodplain development permit. Okay, that requires no action in front of this board or the planning board. It's simply an action issue or permit issued by Mr. Masters as a floodplain administrator. We, as the town engineer of Lewiston, are looking at that in connection with our review of that of Bree Estate subdivision as the town engineer for the town of Niagara as well.
Is there a way that we can say we don't oppose them being lead agent, but we are a party of interest?
You are, because you are an interested agency because for two reasons. One, you got the lead agent or the seeker coordination letter from a permitting agency, if you will, over this project, as well as you're within 500 feet of municipal boundaries. So you're welcome to make any comments that you'd like. Okay? My suggestion would be to allow the town of Niagara to remain lead agent.
No, I agree. I know I think we've been co-lead agent on a different project. I'm not sure if it was a development like this before. I'm just something that's ringing a bell that we've done that in the past. Not that I just was wondering whether it would provide us any benefit.
Not in my experience, but again, the town is welcome to make comments on the project. You know, even beyond the floodplain development permit as well.
Even if we're not lead agent.
Even if you're not lead agent, yes, oh yes.
I read the secret too, and there's a comment in there about drainage for a budding property. And it's been brought to our attention that the water comes from this area onto the town of Lewiston, and it basically floods open space. And I asked Bob Landon, will this improve? Will more of the water be retained on the new subdivision? And you didn't think it would get better, but she said it would get worse.
The drainage is a big issue that's under close scrutiny and review by our firm, both in the town of Niagara as well as the town of Lewiston. Currently, the drainage comes from Miller Road, kind of heads in a general westerly direction along the boundary between the two towns, and then it crosses over and heads generally north into the town of Lewiston and finds its way up into a branch of Gill Creek, and then from Gill Creek all the way down to the river.
And the retention pond would drain towards the Lewiston properties then?
Yes, yes, yeah, yes. The site drainage would drain, and it could be collected on site and sent from the retention pond or detention pond northerly into this town of Lewiston to the ditch that's where Mr. Masters would have to issue a floodplain development permit for. So it's a subject of much review and discussion, I can assure you.
Mr. Masters already said to us that the new zoning laws gives the abutting municipality a little bit more protection than the older zoning laws. More attention has to be made to the impact of this than the abutting us.
Yes.
Am I saying that right, Tim?
I don't think it was regards to the zoning laws, but With this particular project, our big concern is the drainage, so, you know, how is that, if they built their subdivision up 6 feet higher than the town of Lewiston on the border, what is that gonna do to the town of Lewiston? So, and Bob took all the comments from the planning board that was made, and he's gonna study it, he's gonna get back to us, and I don't have any intention of issuing a floodplain development permit until he gives me the warm fuzzy feeling to do it.
Go ahead, Bill.
When the planning board did review the plan, I think the way it was explained is that the rate of runoff will continue to be the same pre-development as well as it will be post-development, but the duration will be longer. So basically, I guess the idea was to basically making a ditch out of the entire development, taking the water, drawing it to the sense of the retention basin. I think that's proper term, retention, correct? And then it will let it flow out at a controlled rate by the size of the pipes and the structures in that retention pond. So there's no more chance for like downstream erosion or anything like that than currently exists. So the condition is supposed to be, the rate will stay the same, the duration would increase because it's draining a larger area. So.
What's currently proposed or suggested is some minor regrading for about 75 feet of the ditch that's within the town of Lewiston property. We're looking at that to determine, okay, is that enough? Okay, and is it proper? And just what impacts there may be in accordance with that.
And is there a liability to the town of Niagara if there is erosion or property damage done to the Lewiston property, or if this development goes through on their end, or are we just...
Is there liability
to the town
of Lewiston from the town of Niagara?
No, the town of Niagara to the town of Lewiston. Say this drainage does damage to the Hasley properties there, isn't it? Is that one of them?
That is the property.
That is she owns it all?
I believe that's the ditch in question. I'm not sure beyond that, but that's the property owner, I believe, that where the ditch is supposed to be, or proposed to be regraded. And it proposes...
I'm just asking if there's a liability to the town of Niagara if damage is done on the Lewiston property, that's all.
Boy, the liability part, that's kind of a... Okay. That's not in the engineering world.
Do we have an easement on the ditch that's in the town of Lewiston for continuous maintenance?
I'm not sure if there's an easement there now, to be totally honest with you. But certainly I would believe that there would be needed to be permission by the homeowner or the landowner there to allow access to that property to do the regrading. Beyond that, I don't know about any, specifically any easement per se.
The subject came up at the planning board, excuse me, the subject came up at the planning board meeting. There is no formal easement on that property to maintain that ditch.
And Mrs. Hasley has not given permission for them to regrade yet.
Okay. So we got stuff. We're a ways away from really any final action before Mr. Masters is proposed with a floodplain development permit. There's the permission issue. There's our comment letter from drainage and other various engineering aspects of it. There's the Mr. Masters' counterpart, Mr. Hasley, up in the town of Niagara, has a series of comments that he needs to address, as well as the highway department and the water superintendent. All of that's going to be subject to a one fairly substantial comment document that we're going to provide to the developer in connection with that has been referred to the Niagara County Planning, which I believe meets on the 20th of this month, I believe. So there was no action taken by the town of Niagara during the November meetings, and it will likely be, or potentially be, on the agenda for further consideration by the town of Niagara in December.
Mr. Domino, can you go out in the hall if you're going to keep talking?
We're done.
Okay.
We're done.
Thank you.
Apologize.
So basically, this is just move to approve the
Town of Niagara being lead agent.
You won't necessarily
Yeah, I mean,
have to take
yeah.
action, you can file it and consider it. I mean, the plan is to file objections, if you're not filing an objection.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so okay,
Very good, thank you.
okay. Thank you very much. Sanborn Historical Society request for funding with the Church and Legion Museum. Councilman Morial.
We had a letter sent to us I'd like to read it today. Dear Town of Lewiston Supervisor, Steve Broderick, and council members. The Sanborn Area Historical Society hereby requests that the Town of Lewiston authorize town grant writer Bernie Rotella to make an application to the Greenway Commission to approve $50,000 to fund the outfitting of our Church Legion Museum at the Sanborn Lewiston Farm Museum. The project would include the purchase of display cabinets and miscellaneous fixtures, mannequins, church-related items, etc. for displaying artifacts, not in the display cases, and the costs associated with installing and setup of these cabinets and items ready for displaying of our artifacts. If authorized by the Greenway Commission and approved by the member coalition, the Town of Lewiston would then provide a grant to SAHS for the approved amount using a portion of their annual funds received by the relicense agreement with the State Power Authority. SAHS, under a previous funded grant from the Town of Lewiston, funded by their Greenway allotment, has moved the Legion building to the farm, added a front end with a bell tower, and added new siding and handicap entrance, completing the outside of this museum. We are now nearing completion of the inside modification with reworking the wainscoting and refurbishing the flooring in the main hall, installing new flooring in the two smaller rooms remaining to be completed. We are now in need the requested grant to outfit the inside so that we can put in our existing artifacts for displays to the public as the Church Legion Museum. We thank the Town Council, the Town Supervisor Council for the consideration in this matter. Over the past 16 years, SAHS has successfully used grant monies to build up the Sanborn Lewiston Farm Museum complex into an educational and historic site for our region and has become a home destination for annual events and festivals. Thank you, William Reed, President, Sanborn Area Historical Society.
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Well, did we really consider where we're using any of the grant monies yet? Have we?
Well, you and I talked about this a little bit on the phone today and the other day. They've done great things at the Sanborn Farm Museum, great things. I go there for many events, and at this time, I mean, we've given them quite a bit of Greenway money to do the projects they just stated. There are a couple other projects in the town that we would like to do. So at this time, I appreciate them reaching out to us, but at this time, I would hold off on this and maybe they can reapply next year, as there are several projects in the works that we would like to use Greenway money for. I don't know if anybody else has an opinion one way or another.
We did just do the parking lot for them, and how much was that?
$200,000.
So it's not like we're neglecting them.
Well, and we paid to move the building there.
Okay.
Which is $175,000.
$175,000.
You know, and then that raises something that we had talked about before, where we were going to try to get a committee to get together to prioritize uses of our Greenway money, and I think that's the important thing to carry forward as we go.
We're also hoping that they will leverage. There's money out there for historic preservation, and maybe we're gonna have to give them a challenge. If they come up with $25,000, we can use $25,000 for the Greenway, but we need to prioritize and leverage.
So at this time, we're going to take no action on that letter. Upper Mountain Fire Company roster. The following person is returning as a member of the Upper Mountain Volunteer Fire Company. We request that the town add his name to the Upper Mountain Volunteer Fire Company town roster. Brendan Fiore, sent by F-I-O-R-E. We have a motion in a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, and a personnel issue. Dear Town of Lewiston board members, I'm ready to request your approval for 20 half sick days as I continue to be out of work due to my injury. I would be very grateful of your consideration of this. Please let me know if you require any information from me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you sincerely, Dave Sheriff. Dave is our dog control officer. I would ask for a motion to approve the 20 half sick days with a discussion.
So move for discussion.
Second, okay. And I know
I haven't reviewed our policy on this. Has anyone done that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Patch's our policy.
Okay, thank you.
He has not made such a request within this year.
Is that all you wanted to add? Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Okay, and set the final audit regular town board meeting for December. Marty?
Yes.
What do we have to do on that?
Well, you need, because of, we normally set it for the last Thursday of the year. In case, I'm trying to think, because Christmas falls on the Monday.
Last Thursday is the 28th.
So it's, I think it's the 28th would normally be, you'd have to change the date of your board meeting, and it's usually, we try to do it the last of the year, but that's normally Thursday, because otherwise this board, or this room's being used, so.
The 11th is our work session. Christmas is on the 25th. I just want to let everybody know, I will be out of town until the 30th, from the 22nd to the 30th, so I will not be in our last regular town board meeting of the year. So I will let you guys decide on a date and a time that works best for you guys.
28th and 6th.
You're on the 28th?
28th and 6th.
Okay.
Try to get the 6th.
That's fine with me.
At 6 p.m.? So December 28th at 6 p.m. will be the December final audit regular town board
What
meeting.
day is that? Is that a Thursday?
Thursday.
Yeah, it could be a tricky day for me. Let's see.
Yeah, work Tuesday and Wednesday.
Oh, okay. All right, then that's it.
Okay. We don't need a motion for that, do we? No, we'll just set the date. Okay.
Mr. Supervisor, may I suggest you keep the agenda light that night?
Yes.
Because we have to do the final audit.
Right, right. And that'll do it for the agenda for our work session. I want to move over. Yep.
Were you gonna call for a public hearing for the R2 or not?
I have to put together the law first, so we have to have the law provided to the board before we can do that, so we cannot do that right now.
Yeah, there'll be no action taken.
I need time to review all the documents.
Okay, privilege of the floor, Rosemary Warren.
I think you spend a little bit of town money on these walls, painting, or whatever. I wish you spent a little more money on microphones. Or take a course on public speaking, which I had to do when I was going to be a teacher. A couple other things. Mr. Catalano, now I was nothing, oh, he's probably nervous now thinking. I'm talking to Mr. Moriel about the Cold War. I said, you know, this was the last meeting. I said, I don't know when the Cold War was. What? Mr. Catalano walks by. He says, I was a history major. He tells us the date. Now, I think Mr. Catalano figured out which would be a more successful career, a history teacher or an attorney. I think maybe he chose the right one.
Well, I don't know about that.
Now, I've got one page here. I'll be sending this to controller about your budget. The page, I sent a few more, but the fund balance. Now, it's the general fund. Your fund balance is getting too high. Now, I know it's nice to have a fund balance, but when you think about it, every department has a fund balance. So your water would have a fund balance, your sewer would have one, your recreation. This is just your little kind of fund balance to play around with, okay? Now, it went up $488,000 from 2015 to 2016. You don't have 2017 in here. So you might say, well, that was a good thing, Mrs. Warren. You should be happy. I'm saying maybe don't dip into the fund balance. I was on the school board in Niagara-Wheatfield. Don't dip into that fund balance completely. You need it for emergencies. But when you start adding up all those fund balances and all those different departments, it's a lot more than $488,000. So I think it's too high. I think now many times boards will do this. They inflate the expenses. They inflate their expenses to look good. And then they're not realistic numbers. They're like, I call it creative accounting. They're like transferring back and forth and so on. Pardon?
Above. On the microphone.
Not after the microphone. I bet they set that over there, so I'll keep quiet.
I fed him all day. You know how hard that is to feed that little guy?
Poisonous scorpion. One last thing. I came for your budget hearing, and there were only a few of us, which it wasn't too exciting anyway. I can see why someone would stay home and do dishes. But the other thing is, there was a couple right here. Couple right here. He's sitting, she's in a wheelchair. Kind of brought a tear to my eye. Rainy night, drizzle. I've helped my husband with a wheelchair out of a trunk. That is not a good thing. So really, you know, sometimes when you're, I get a little emotional, but sometimes when you're giving a award for the Lewiston Citizen of the Year, it's usually some important person. It won't be me. You don't really care about me.
Not true.
No. That's the couple that you get, the Lewiston Citizen of the Year. A man who took a wheelchair in drizzle out of a trunk, that's hard to lift it out, helped his wife in here. Yes, they were the Citizens of the Year. I spoke to them and said, it's a wonderful thing you did. The other thing, as I said, I think that's about it. I think that's about it. I'll come up with a few other things later. But as I said, I'll be sending a few pages to the controller about your budget.
Thank you, Mrs. Warren,
You're welcome.
as always.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy Correa.
Riverwalk Drive. Mr. Morial, I share your frustration at not receiving the finance letter from the Rubino brothers. Those are public documents that quite a while ago, Mr. Supervisor and the board agreed to have put on the website anything that you would review concerning any items brought before your attention. Now, I know that the clerk has problems receiving items on time. So therefore, there has to be a concerted effort, including the attorneys, the engineer, department heads, that these items be brought to her on a timely basis to put on the website. So I ask you to please oversee that and make sure that your commitment to keep the public informed is processed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Correa. And James Diodati. Did he make it? Yeah, there you are. Sorry.
I didn't realize I have to sit through the whole meeting. I have what I consider an outrageous water bill, because they changed our old meter to, you know, the new one in July, and my bills average like $130 to $40 every 3 months. Now I receive a bill for $819. And when I spoke to the clerk that takes care of the payments, she told me it was because due to the old meter, it was underestimating our bill for a long time. And we've been here 27 years now this November. I've never received a bill like this. And I know they went from 2-month billing to 3, but to go from that figure to $819, it's just totally ridiculous.
I'll be in the morning. You can give me a call. About, say around 10 o'clock, call me in the morning here at the town hall. I can get you, yeah, I can get you a card if you want. Or there should be a number on there. You can just ask for Supervisor Broderick and I'll talk to you about it.
Yes, there's a number on the back,
Yeah.
8214.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry I had.
No, that's okay. I apologize that you had to sit through. If I knew it was that simple, I would have told you to call me.
Yeah, I should have asked you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay, so I'll give you a call at 10?
Yes, 10
Okay,
o'clock.
great.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yes.
Do you want me with Mr. Burke?
We just put him on the next.
We're just on the next,
the next
27th.
At 6 o'clock, the regular town board meeting.
Yeah. I want to let everybody know that the town offices will be closed on November 23rd and the 24th for the Thanksgiving holiday. Our upcoming meetings is the Historic Preservation, November 14th at 6 p.m. Environmental Commission, November 14th at 7 p.m. And the Planning Board, November 16th at 6:30 p.m. has been canceled. Planning Board, November 16th at 6:30 p.m. has been canceled. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Can I say something real quick before we close?
Sure.
Just Don Anderson, 884 The Circle, once again. Just a quick question on the condition that was added to the PUD. It was obvious to everybody in the room that you guys added that condition for the public safety and to keep construction and traffic off of Bronson. But it seems like the way that it's written, there could maybe be a small gravel road built on the side. A golf cart goes up it once or twice, and that condition's fulfilled. So I was just wondering if you guys could go on the record just to make it clear that your intention passing that condition was to keep the construction traffic off Bronson.
I'll go on the record and say that that was the intention of my addition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Have a good holidays.
Just one more thing. I was impressed when Mr. Massaro was talking about his plan down in Northridge. He mentioned two terms that I'm really in favor of. He said he was going to take responsibility for planting trees to, so that Scoville wouldn't have to, so Scoville would have some kind of barrier.
I think those are already existing trees, because I went and looked, I walked the property today, there's trees existing.
He specifically said he was
Okay, okay.
The other
Go ahead. I apologize, I just want to make sure to clarify.
The other term he used was a buffer zone. And those are two things, if the Rubino brothers PUD goes forth, if we could please see if we can incorporate that as you have incorporated the coming down from Upper Mountain, which is good. If we could look into having them take responsibility for planting and including a buffer zone.
I believe the planning board's certainly going to be looking into that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask from back here? I can speak pretty loud. That place in Town of Niagara, the Prairie Estates subdivision, I heard that they were also planning to develop some in town of Lewiston. Has anything been proposed or any talk of that at all?
No, not as far as we know. There's been nothing about town of Lewiston. It's all town, it's 100% in the town of Niagara, the way I understand it.
The only other land that's there is the farmland, right? That has, is it Hasley's that own it?
Right.
Hasley's own it.
Yeah.
And I hear that that's set against.
I don't know one way or the other on it. There's been no,
I just wondered
yeah.
if that's another group of patio homes that will be introduced in the town of Lewiston in the near future.
I can't answer that question. There's been no proposal, nothing brought before the building inspector, so I can't answer that question.
Okay, I just wondered because rumors,
Right.
people are upset in town of Niagara. If you go down Grower Road, it's sign.
I know.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I just wonder, it's not just Bronson that complains,
Right.
or the Circle. It's people who have enjoyed nice living, and nothing's wrong with putting homes in there. It's everybody's contention that it's a little bit different. Too much different, really, to what we have there now. And thank you, Mr. Bax, about considering the people on our road.
We do our best.
One more thing. I trained to be a teacher, so they talk, you know. Okay. What is going to happen if they don't build a road over the creek? They gotta go over the creek. That's not just a road down through there. And do the construction road. What is going to happen? Is there any other?
What enforcement mechanism?
Right. The original one that they showed us had two exits up on Upper Mountain Road.
Right.
Now there's going to be possibly. Now you understand that I went around with the first one, and I know it's taken a long time to get to where we are today. What is going to make it happen? That all the construction is not going to happen on Bronson Drive. You've got school buses. Are they going to work after the school buses go through? There's no place for the kids to walk on our road.
Bill, I'm not sure if you want to address it, but my thought would be that the school buses and the construction vehicles wouldn't be on the same road other than Upper Mountain.
Right. They're going to be on, they go up and down I'm saying Klein because I grew up over there. Bronson. There's 2 or 3.
He's saying that they put it on record that that road's gonna go in on Upper Mountain, so those guys have to put that.
The construction vehicles will utilize
So let's
A
see.
construction
construction
entrance.
entrance.
And a construction
That's not
entrance.
gonna change at all.
Sorry?
That won't change.
That's how we approve the new law with that contingency.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to know, because things do change.
Yeah, fair enough.
But what if Rabinos don't like that idea?
Then they don't move forward.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody have a good night. Thank you.